Seeing the rash of tier list memes that swept across Twitter and other social media sites for all of a week or so, I was surprised and very happy, not gonna lie, at the constant love still directed towards Dragon Quest III and V. Then, panning to the bottom, I would discover one that's not too much of a shock, Dragon Quest II. And I find myself in a weird place because of it. I feel like I ought to give it a proper defense. Well, try to at least. But before going into it, as an aside, I'd place both 6 and 9 below 2. However, those are thoughts for another day. Whenever I think about the thoughts on Dragon Quest II on YouTube, the most prominent remarks to come to mind are, it's a sizable jump from 1 to 2, but 3 just blows it out of the water. And Ego Raptors slam on it for its alleged poor conveyance in one of those sequelitis videos. And that has stuck in my craw for all these years. See, aside from the adorable slimes and monsters and the great atmospheric music, what drew me more and more into the old games was the method of delivery. One scope was very well contained, and going the wrong direction will result in a quick restart or a bit of the runaway syndrome. Dragon Quest II multiplies the scope by 4, maybe 5 times that. It also guides the player early on to take in the new surroundings and the main character without too much trouble. You cycle through a handful of locations before adding a second character, which is followed by a quick bit of grinding to access and finally recruit your final party member. Then, a little more exploring and some levels later, you get access to a boat, and the world, for the most part, is there to explore. You know, people railed on Final Fantasy XIII and its affinity for hallways, yet Dragon Quest, particularly the older ones, requires the player to delve into the world and become the explorer and savior of it. That means talking to everyone. Clues to progress are scattered throughout. They're like pieces to a puzzle, not some 100 count thing you can piece together in 10 minutes, but a 1500 count portrait that's going to take a good deal of time to get through. Unless you are quite familiar with the game, you're in for a lot of searching high and low. Sometimes the clues are right there, or at least close to your current location. Other times they are spread throughout different corners far, far away. Hand in hand, this is an excellent way to deal with grinding. Exploring the unknown, going back and forth, to be so sure of each twist and turn of a dungeon to finally blitz through and conquer it. To me, that's such a great feeling. I hate being able to go through an unknown dungeon on the first go, and have little issue getting through it. That lessens the tension, the thrill of adventuring. It feels very much like finally surmounting a troublesome stumbling block, like losing those last 10 pounds, or mastering a particular lick of a song, or having that dusty manuscript published. See, though taking some notes would go a long way in making Dragon Quest II slightly easier to traverse, the world is sparsely populated enough so that one could slowly increase their range of travel per play sessions, scoping out one way or another to find all sorts of neat nifty towns, areas, and clues, all the while accruing the necessary money for the latest gear, the experience to level up for the tough road ahead, and the familiarity of the world you're playing in. There are a couple hiccups, like using the evil statue, or as it's called in previous games, Malroth's Eye, to reveal the path to the final section of the game, or searching for the 5 seals needed to complete the final dungeon. Not saying it's perfect. Dragon Quest II does force the player to check every nook and cranny in hopes of finding ways to progress, by finding the necessary item or stronger gear to defeat the mighty enemy standing in the way of peace. While the game is tough throughout, all of this pales in comparison to the terror that is the final stretch of this game. Rendarik. The name itself ought to send shivers down the spine of anyone who has played through Dragon Quest II. The area formerly localized as Rhone and the cave leading to this place are fiendish. Hell is not a fiery pit, but a lofty plateau of snow, still and silent, like the death surely to follow. If there is a major gripe to level at this game, it is how this portion was handled. The quest to bring back peace to the world and to stave off the doom leveled at the Line of Loto is rife with trouble, but the last few areas make all of the preceding issues feel like a friendly jaunt through the park. First, let's talk about that cave. You know, that same one I just mentioned that uses item to reveal its location? It's not terrible, except for the hidden pits and the great treasure buried in said pits away from the exit that is guarded by a whole new batch of monsters and is masked by a maze that will send you back to the beginning of the floor if you choose the wrong direction. But wait, there's more! Once outside in Rendarik, you have to find your way to a shrine, which isn't too hidden, but if you're unlucky, there will be a few fights along the way. And remember how I said that final floor of the cave that had those tough new monsters? Well, joke's on you. They're more like a family of slimes compared to the butchers that show up. get killed before reaching that shrine, well, prepare to trek through that cave once more. However, once you do get to the shrine, you can grind until you feel comfortable in making the final assault on Hargon's castle, which I like a lot. Now, the palette-swapped mini-bosses that randomly are there, they're shoehorned in, and using the statue and eye once more to go up to floor 2 is a bit sneaky, but the intro is great. Hargon's skill of illusion is demonstrated, and an item obtained from collecting all 5 seals helps dispel it. The castle itself is incredibly short and direct, which is a welcome relief and a smart touch. Dungeons all throughout this game are littered with misdirection, so to realign to a general straightforward approach was clever, if a bit simple. Plus, I have a biased love for that final short direct attack at the end of a game instead of super long final dungeons, just a personal preference. Now, in the NES version, the bosses Hargon and the true final boss are a gauntlet of doom. Even the easier Game Boy Color version can still be tough. But to set this all up, you fight through 4 bosses and eventually take care of Hargon, only to be confronted by the true final fight, the ferocious god of destruction, Malroth. Appropriately renamed Sido in the Game Boy Color version, which is a nod to Shiva the Destroyer that becomes a bit more noticeable in later versions, at least most of them, as its scale color shifts from green to blue. In the original version, Sido could full heal itself, which is such a sucky move, but its HP stat wasn't too high, so I guess that's something. In the Game Boy Color version, there's no full heal to worry about, however, Sido is rocking about 4 times as much health. Have fun! Once it is defeated, you are free to traverse the world unimpeded, as evil has literally been vanquished. While not groundbreaking or mind-blowingly filled with revelations, this is such a great design choice. The player actually gets to experience, albeit briefly, the fruits of their labor. And I know this was done in Dragon Quest I, but still. I have made it clear through podcasts and ancient videos that Dragon Quest V is my favorite in the series. Totally looking forward to that movie, by the way. A close second would be 3. Aside from that, I see 2 as what it needed to be, a progression to new heights that would be reached one game 1 year later. Consider this, Dragon Quest I was released in May of 1986, and 2 was released in January of 87. That's 8 months, 3/4 of a year. For reference, Dragon Quest III would come out 13 months later. I understand many will not enjoy this game due to having to excessively explore, making certain to talk to everyone, and the outright brutal last stretch, but I wonder if that's for a couple different reasons. One being the absolute stellar games to follow. 2 becomes perceived as less of a bridge connecting to ascending heights and more some poor rushed expansion of Dragon Quest I, but lacks the execution and grandness of Dragon Quest III. The others that they played and tried to rush through the game, excited to go through the series and became off-put by the sheer rise in difficulty presented, and soured on the experience. Of course, there will be those who simply don't like this game, but I find it odd that many will hold of Dragon Quest I and situate it with the proper context to justify giving it a higher place in their hearts, but do not give Dragon Quest II that same benefit. Perhaps that's simply some projection on my part, but as I fought tooth and nail to rid the world of Hargon and the evils he wished upon it, my heart softened, and I warmed to this much-needed middle step that would propel the series to staggering new levels, as they would go back in time to explore the legend created in the first game. Played Dragon Quest II before? Thoughts? If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and comment below. We can also carry on with the conversation on Twitter at Mudogaru553. Thanks for watching, and have a good day. While not groundbreaking,